felt, a little removed, very cold, not like Bruce, who is very warm and affectionate, to going the complete opposite of that.
Bruce Willis, the name that once made the whole world hold its breath with the fearless image of John McClane in Die Hard, is more than just an action star. Willis is the embodiment of grit, of magnetic charisma, and of an unyielding spirit that lit up the screen for more than 4 decades. From a boy mocked for his stutter, he rose to become a cinematic icon, forever tied to roles that reshaped the entire action genre. Yet now, at 70, the man who defeated every enemy on screen faces a battle far harsher than any script could invent. The cruel fight against a degenerative neurological disease. The hero who once saved the world can no longer save himself, as memory slips away piece by piece, words fracture on his lips, and even walking becomes a trial. Behind those once piercing eyes lies an invisible darkness, slowly erasing the fragments of love and memory that remain. The story of Bruce Willis is not only that of an action star, but of a man who rose from a wounded childhood, conquered Hollywood, and now confronts fate with the same courage that once defined his name. If Bruce Willis has ever made you laugh, cry, or believe in the impossible, hit like to pay tribute, with empathy, with a moment of silence, for the hero who is now writing the final chapter of his life, not on screen, but in reality. Early life. Bruce Willis, full name Walter Bruce Willis, was born on March 19, 1955, in Idar Oberstein, West Germany, inside a small military base in post-war Europe. His father, David Willis, was an American soldier stationed there after World War II. After leaving the Army, David found no glory waiting for him, only grueling shifts as a welder, mechanic, and factory worker. His mother, Marlene, a quiet German woman, took a job at a bank to keep the family from slipping into poverty. In 1957, when Bruce was just 2 years old, the Willis family left Germany and settled in Carneys Point, New Jersey, a working-class American town. There, Bruce's childhood was marked by financial hardship, family tensions, and his father's worsening alcoholism. Constant fights eventually tore David and Marlene's marriage apart, leaving behind wounds that never healed. As the eldest of 4 siblings, Bruce was forced to shoulder responsibility early on, protecting his younger brothers and sister while struggling with his own private battles. One of those battles was a severe stutter. Every sentence was a struggle, every word a minefield. Schoolmates mocked him cruelly, giving him the nickname Buck Buck, and he became an easy target for bullies. The ridicule haunted him, leaving him both hot-tempered and withdrawn, carrying a deep sense of shame. But amid that darkness, a kind of miracle appeared. When Bruce stepped onto the stage at Penns Grove High School, his stutter vanished. Lines flowed effortlessly, his voice rang clear, and for the first time he was heard without laughter cutting him down. The stage became his refuge, transforming the boy once mocked into someone confident, someone who could even lead. He earned the trust of his peers and, against all odds, was elected student body president, a triumph he could never have imagined just a few years earlier. Yet Bruce's teenage years were not free of turbulence. Rebellious and impulsive, he was arrested at 19 for marijuana possession, a blemish that marked his early adulthood. But instead of breaking him, the incident served as a harsh reminder that life would never go easy on him. In 1973, Bruce graduated from high school carrying a fierce desire to act, but facing a hard reality. His family was poor, and there was no money to support an artistic dream. he took on a string of tough jobs to support himself, working as a security guard at a nuclear power plant, driving workers to and from their shifts, hauling chemicals at a DuPont factory, and bartending late into the night. These jobs brought no glamour, only sweat, exhaustion, and grime. But they built in him endurance, discipline, and an understanding of working-class life. Qualities that would later infuse his performances with authenticity. Those years gave him no spotlight, only calloused hands and weary nights. Yet they forged the toughness, resilience, and sharp eye for human behavior that became the backbone of his acting. Most importantly, deep inside, the flame of the stage he once discovered never went out. It burned quietly, a constant reminder that life was not only factories and bars, that there was another path, where the boy once called Buck could prove his true worth to the world. Early career. After graduating high school in 1973, Bruce Willis stood at a precarious crossroads. With a working-class background and divorced parents, the most stable path seemed to be following in his father's footsteps as a laborer. Yet deep inside, Bruce remained haunted by those miraculous moments on stage, where the stutter that once shackled his childhood vanished the instant he stepped into character. That feeling drove him to pursue the arts, even if the road ahead was uncertain. He enrolled at Montclair State University to study drama. There, he learned the fundamentals of acting, how to analyze scripts, command the stage, and breathe life into a character. More importantly, a drama professor urged him to see a speech therapist, and for the first time, Bruce learned to control his stutter. Speaking fluently before an audience was no longer a distant dream. It became a weapon that gave him confidence. But impatience, coupled with relentless poverty, soon caught up with him. In 1977, Bruce dropped out of college and left New Jersey, chasing his dream all the way to New York City, the place where Hollywood ambitions so often began. It was a reckless move. With almost no money in his pocket, he crammed into a tiny Hell's Kitchen apartment, a neighborhood rife with crime and temptation. By day, he stood in long casting lines, clutching a cheap headshot among hundreds of polished hopefuls. By night, he worked as a bartender, wearing a bandana, mixing drinks, roller skating down the street, playing the harmonica, and juggling for drunk customers. During this time, he created Bruno, a larger-than-life version of himself, witty, loud, confident, never letting anyone overshadow him. People came to the bar not just for a drink, but to hear Bruno perform. That mix of everyday charm and theatricality later became Bruce Willis's signature on screen. Meanwhile, he began landing small roles on Broadway and off-Broadway. Plays like Heaven and Earth and Fool for Love gave him the chance to stand under the lights, though they hardly paid the rent. Bruce also tried his luck in television with brief appearances, including a small part in Miami Vice. These fleeting moments didn't make him a star, but they revealed something many other actors lacked: authenticity and a hint of defiance. During these years, Bruce also stumbled into youthful trouble. He was once arrested for marijuana possession, a blemish that could have ruined his chances if exposed later. But for Bruce, it was a lesson. Either give up or rise stronger. He chose the latter. Then, in 1985, came the true turning point. A studio was casting for the TV series Moonlighting, looking for someone to play Detective David Addison Jr. More than 3,000 people auditioned. Most arrived neatly dressed, reciting lines with precision. Bruce was different. He walked in wearing a rumpled leather jacket, his hair a mess, carrying an irreverent swagger. While reading the lines, he improvised with jokes, breaking the mold entirely. The judges were stunned. It seemed as if David Addison had been written for Bruce to inhabit. And so, from a nobody behind the bar, Bruce Willis exploded into a television star. In Moonlighting, he starred opposite Sybil Shepherd, creating one of the most iconic TV pairings of the 1980s. The tense, witty, and flirtatious relationship between David Addison and Maddie Hayes made audiences laugh and kept them eagerly waiting for each new episode. For his role, Bruce won both an Emmy and a Golden Globe, becoming a household name across America. Yet for Bruce, Moonlighting was only the beginning. Its success opened the door to film, but also posed the question: could a TV star conquer the big screen, already dominated by the likes of Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger? He was about to face the greatest test of his life, a role that would not only transform his career, but redefine the very idea of the action hero in cinema history. John McClane in Die Hard, 1988. Career success. In 1988, opportunity came to Bruce Willis in the form of a script called Die Hard. At first, he wasn't the studio's top choice. Producers wanted familiar faces like Sylvester Stallone or Arnold Schwarzenegger, the muscle-bound titans who ruled the action genre. But when all of them turned it down, the role unexpectedly fell into the hands of Willis, a TV actor many doubted could carry a summer blockbuster. The role of John McClane, a New York cop trapped in a skyscraper overtaken by terrorists, changed film history. McClane wasn't a superhuman, didn't wield heavy weapons, nor did he boast oversized muscles. He was just an ordinary man, barefoot, bleeding, stumbling, swearing, and desperate, someone audiences could see themselves in. That sense of vulnerability mixed with wit and grit turned McClane into an icon. Die Hard not only earned $138 million worldwide, but redefined the standards of the action genre. Practically overnight, Bruce Willis leapt from TV stardom to the ranks of Hollywood legends. After Die Hard's explosion in 1988, Willis became one of the faces reshaping the action movie landscape. John McClane, the weary, bloodied, fallible cop who never gave up, stood apart from the muscle-bound heroes of the era. The film's success launched 4 sequels and placed Willis at the center of late 20th century pop culture. From that moment, he wasn't just an action figure, he was expected to bring something new to Hollywood cinema. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, Willis experimented with different genres. In Look Who's Talking, 1989, he surprised audiences by stealing the show with nothing more than a baby's voiceover. That same year, he displayed emotional depth in In Country, portraying a haunted Vietnam veteran, a performance praised by critics and proof that he wasn't limited to action roles. But setbacks followed. The Bonfire of the Vanities, 1990, and especially Hudson Hawk, 1991, flopped badly, leading the press to brand him a washed-up star. Yet Willis didn't collapse. He came roaring back with Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction, 1994, where his turn as Butch Coolidge, a tough, taciturn boxer, forced critics and audiences alike to admit that Willis could be a versatile actor. The film's success not only revived his career, but restored his credibility. In 1995, he pushed himself further with Terry Gilliam's 12 Monkeys, playing James Cole, a broken man lost in time and despair. The role proved he could inhabit complex, layered characters beyond action stereotypes. 2 years later, he cemented his global appeal with Luc Besson's The Fifth Element, 1997, as Corbin Dallas, a weary but charismatic ex-soldier who captivated audiences in a vibrant sci-fi world. And in 1998, he became humanity's savior in Armageddon. Though derided by critics for its formulaic script, Michael Bay's spectacle was one of the year's biggest hits. The image of Harry Stamper sacrificing himself in space to save Earth brought millions of viewers to tears, adding a new layer to Willis's career. Not just the survivor, but the selfless hero. Artistic heights came in The Sixth Sense, 1999, where he played child psychologist Malcolm Crowe. Subtle, wounded, and deeply empathetic, Willis replaced gunfire with quiet resonance. The film became a worldwide phenomenon, grossing over $670 million and earning 6 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture. Though Willis himself wasn't nominated, his performance was hailed as one of his finest, showing audiences he was far more than a gun-toting action star. Entering the 21st century, Willis reunited with Shyamalan in Unbreakable, 2000, portraying David Dunn, a lonely man who slowly discovers his supernatural abilities. While not a huge hit at first, the film later achieved cult status, hailed by critics as one of the greatest superhero movies ever made. Nearly 2 decades later, when Willis returned in Glass, 2019, to complete the trilogy, audiences finally saw the full scope of David Dunn, a melancholic, introspective hero, the complete opposite of John McClane. Willis also proved his adaptability in independent and offbeat films. In Sin City, 2005, he played Hartigan, an aging but principled cop, leaving a lasting mark on modern noir. In Red, 2010, he charmed younger audiences as Frank Moses, a retired spy who remained dangerous even in retirement, blending humor with action. Perhaps most striking was his role in Wes Anderson's Moonrise Kingdom, 2012, where as Captain Sharp, a lonely, tender-hearted police chief, he delivered one of his most understated and affecting performances. That same year in Looper, Willis confronted a younger version of himself in a clever, time-twisting sci-fi thriller that succeeded both critically and commercially, further proof that he could still surprise audiences well past his prime. Throughout his career, Willis earned accolades early on. With Moonlighting, he won both a Golden Globe and an Emmy, establishing himself on television before dominating the silver screen. He later picked up another Emmy for a guest role in Friends, showing his comedic chops. In 2006, he received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, an enduring symbol of his decades of contributions. In more than 4 decades, Willis appeared in over 100 films, enduring both triumphs and failures, but always anchored by resilience. From John McClane in Die Hard to Malcolm Crowe in The Sixth Sense, from Harry Stamper in Armageddon to David Dunn in Unbreakable, he built a gallery of characters that captured not only strength but also loneliness, humor, and vulnerability. That range transformed him into a legend, an actor who conquered the box office while also touching hearts, leaving behind a cinematic legacy far greater than numbers alone. Beyond film, Willis dabbled in music with his blues-infused pop album, The Return of Bruno, 1987. Though it didn't launch him as a music star, it surprised fans with his versatility. Commercially, he also became a major advertising figure, most famously with a multi-million-dollar contract for Seagram, proof of his influence beyond Hollywood. Despite failures and controversies, Bruce Willis endured for over 40 years, becoming one of the most beloved action stars of all time. His career is a tapestry of soaring highs and painful lows, but it was his perseverance, the refusal to quit, that cemented his place as a true Hollywood legend. Turmoil and Shadows. In the dazzling spotlight of Hollywood, Bruce Willis once stood as an untouchable icon, but behind the blockbuster films lay turmoil and scars that left lasting marks on his life and career. In the 1980s, just as his fame exploded with Moonlighting and Die Hard, Willis signed a multi-million-dollar advertising contract with the renowned beverage brand Seagram's. But the triumph was short-lived. After being arrested for driving under the influence, he lost the contract overnight. The image of Hollywood's rising action star crumbled in the public eye, leaving a stain that was hard to erase. It was the first time the world saw the bitter contradiction in Bruce Willis. On screen, an invincible hero. Off screen, a flawed man vulnerable to alcohol and personal mistakes. That wound had barely begun to heal before the following years brought him real physical injuries. While filming Die Hard, 1988, during a scene where his character John McClane exchanged gunfire in a confined space, a blank round was fired right next to Willis's left ear. The blast permanently damaged his hearing. From then on, reporters often described him as aloof or distant during interviews. But in truth, he often simply couldn't hear the questions. What audiences mistook for brusqueness was in fact the consequence of a workplace injury that would never heal. Tragedy struck again in 2003 on the set of Tears of the Sun. A pyrotechnic explosion went out of control, and the flames and concussive force left Willis with a serious head injury. He not only required immediate medical attention on set, but also filed a lawsuit against the production company and special effects team. In his complaint, he described suffering severe physical, mental, and emotional pain, and noted he would need long-term treatment. The incident laid bare the thin line between on-screen thrills and the very real dangers actors like Willis endured. Willis also challenged himself in theater. In 2015, he appeared on Broadway in Misery, adapted from Stephen King's novel. It should have been the chance to prove he was more than just an explosions and guns hero and could command a stage. Instead, it ended in disappointment. Critics slammed his performance as low energy and disjointed, while audience members noticed he seemed to rely on an earpiece to feed him lines. At the time, many assumed he was lazy or unfocused. Only years later, when his family revealed his diagnosis of aphasia and eventually frontotemporal dementia, did the public realize the painful truth. His faltering performance was an early warning sign of the illness that had already begun to erode him. From losing a contract to alcohol, to carrying the physical scars of fake gunfire and pyrotechnic blasts, and finally revealing the silent onset of disease through his struggles on the Broadway stage. Bruce Willis's career was not only brilliance and glory, but also shadows and pain. Yet those shadows, when seen in retrospect, only deepened the admiration. For behind the fame was a man who clung to his craft with resilience, performing until the very last moment his body and mind would allow. Personal life. If Bruce Willis's career carried him from a bar in Hell's Kitchen to the pinnacle of Hollywood action stardom, then his private life was defined by a love story both dazzling and tragic, his marriage to Demi Moore. It began like a lightning strike, soared like a fairy tale, and ended in silence, leaving behind memories both beautiful and bitter. Bruce and Demi first met in 1987 at the premiere of Stakeout in Los Angeles. Demi attended with her then-boyfriend, Emilio Estevez, but Bruce's gaze shifted the night's course. Later reports claimed Estevez grew visibly uneasy as he noticed Bruce staring at Demi without blinking. Just days later, Bruce asked her out to dinner. What began as a chance encounter quickly turned into destiny. Within a few months, the couple shocked Hollywood by marrying in a sudden Las Vegas ceremony. To formalize it with family and friends, they later held a larger wedding with singer Little Richard officiating. At the time, both were at their peaks. Demi Moore was a rising star thanks to Saint, Elmo's Fire, and preparing for the wave of high-profile roles that followed. Bruce Willis had just leapt from bartending in Hell's Kitchen to stardom on Moonlighting, with Die Hard about to make him an action legend. Together, they became Hollywood's newest golden couple. Demi, bold and alluring. Bruce, rugged and magnetic. Soon after, Demi gave birth to their first daughter, Rumor Willis, in 1988. Scout followed in 1991, then Tallulah in 1994. Their three daughters turned their home into the image of perfection. On magazine covers, the Willis-Moore family radiated smiles, luxury vacations, and the kind of domestic bliss millions admired. Bruce often said, "My parents broke apart when I was a kid, so I want my children to have a happier childhood than I did." For him, Demi and the girls were his greatest treasure. But behind the glow lay hidden fractures. In her 2019 memoir, Inside Out, Demi Moore revealed that Bruce longed for a traditional family, he as the breadwinner, she as the homemaker. Yet, Demi was in the prime of her career and unwilling to abandon acting for domesticity. Each time she accepted a film, especially projects requiring long absences, Bruce grew resentful. Meanwhile, his own grueling schedule, often shooting in Europe, widened the distance. The pressure of fame and constant separations strained their marriage. In a 2000 Rolling Stone interview, Bruce admitted that everything was under a gigantic microscope, and public scrutiny magnified the cracks. According to Demi, it was Bruce who ultimately asked for the divorce, partly because he wanted more freedom, unwilling to be bound by marital expectations. In 2000, after 13 years together, they officially divorced. Hollywood was stunned. The seemingly unbreakable couple had fallen apart. For Bruce, it was one of life's hardest blows. He no longer woke up to the laughter of his children each morning. Friends recalled that after moving out, he would sit alone in his New York apartment, his eyes clouded with sadness whenever he spoke of them. He once confessed, "The hardest part wasn't leaving Demi. It was not waking up to see my kids every day." Yet, what set Willis and Moore apart was that their breakup never turned into bitterness. They remained friends, co-parented with grace, and continued appearing together at family events, even when Demi married Ashton Kutcher. The media often called their post-divorce relationship a Hollywood miracle, a bond reshaped but never severed. For Bruce, that marriage was both glorious and painful. He had tasted the joy of a full household, and he had endured the solitude of losing it. Perhaps that very heartbreak added depth to the man behind the tough exterior the world saw on screen. After his marriage to Demi, Bruce spent years single. He dated several well-known Hollywood figures, but none of the relationships lasted long enough to fill the void. Many assumed Bruce would remain the archetype of the charming bad boy, an action hero on screen, but lonely in private. Then came Emma Heming, a woman who changed everything. Emma, a British model and actress 23 years younger, met Bruce in 2007 at a trainer's gym party. At first, Bruce doubted he could ever love deeply again. He once admitted that after a failed marriage and years of missing out on his children's daily lives, he thought, love was something for other people, not me. But Emma altered that belief. In her, he found warmth, simplicity, and a lack of pressure, qualities he had never fully known in past relationships. 2 years later, in 2009, Bruce and Emma married in Turks and Caicos. It was a private ceremony filled with joy, attended by Demi Moore and her new husband, Ashton Kutcher, an extraordinary show of harmony in Hollywood. For Bruce, this wasn't just another marriage, it was a chance to start over, to build a new home, a new family, where he could finally be himself. With Emma, Bruce welcomed 2 more daughters, Mabel Ray, 2012, and Evelyn Penn, 2014. In his 50s, he embraced fatherhood all over again. He was often seen laughing with his little girls, eyes shining with happiness. Photos Emma shared on social media showed Bruce in his most down-to-earth form, carrying his daughters on his shoulders, holding their hands on walks, baking with the family. It was the opposite of John McClane's grit, but perhaps the most important role of his life: fatherhood. Emma became more than a wife. She was his anchor and confidant. When Bruce was diagnosed with aphasia and later frontotemporal dementia, FTD, it was Emma who stood at the front line as his full-time caregiver. She balanced raising young children with guiding the family through crisis, all while publicly raising awareness about his condition. Rather than hide, she chose transparency, co-founding Make Time Wellness, an initiative supporting brain health and families facing similar struggles. Through it all, Emma was never alone. Demi Moore and Bruce's 3 older daughters stood beside her. Images of Emma and Demi holding hands while caring for Bruce touched the public deeply. In an industry rife with scandal, the Willis family became a rare example of kindness and love that transcended traditional boundaries. Bruce once called Emma the light of my life. Indeed, she gave him a quiet joy he had never fully known. In his final years, as his health declined, Emma's steady presence and the love of their daughters brought him peace. Her gaze upon him carried not pity, but profound love, even with darkness looming ahead. In many ways, Emma Heming was Bruce Willis's final and most beautiful chapter. Their bond wasn't as explosive as his marriage to Demi Moore, nor did it set tabloids ablaze. Instead, it was enduring, gentle, and deeply rooted. As Hollywood's lights dimmed, it was Emma and their family who preserved what mattered most for Bruce: love, peace, and the warmth of a true home. Later, career and signs of illness. From around 2020, fans began to notice Bruce Willis's career taking a puzzling turn. Instead of the massive action blockbusters that had built his name, he began appearing rapidly in a string of low-budget independent films, many released straight to video or streaming platforms. Titles such as Out of Death, 2021, Cosmic Sin, 2021, Hard Kill, 2020, and Survive the Night, 2020, all shared the same traits: flimsy scripts, rushed productions, and scathing reviews from critics. What confused audiences most was that Bruce Willis's name was still printed in bold on the posters, but on screen he often appeared only for a few fleeting minutes, usually at the beginning or end, enough to give the impression that he was the star, when in truth, his role was little more than an exaggerated cameo. The press dubbed this trend geezer teasers, a marketing ploy that exploited the fading allure of aging stars to lure viewers. For Willis, The man who had once redefined the action genre, becoming a face used to sell cheap films, left audiences both disappointed and bewildered. Some accused him of selling out his name, while others felt sympathy, suspecting there had to be another reason behind these shallow appearances. Colleagues who worked with him during this period shared troubling accounts. He struggled to remember even short lines, relying on an earpiece through which crew members fed him dialogue word for word. Many scenes had to be cut down, and entire scripts were rewritten to minimize his screen time. On the set of Hard Kill, Willis reportedly discharged a prop gun before the cue, startling the crew. To his co-workers, this was no longer the fearless John McClane of old, but a man grappling with memory gaps and disorienting confusion. Audiences, unaware of what was happening behind the scenes, saw only a fallen legend sinking into low-grade projects and collecting waves of criticism. Yet these very performances were already warning signs of a deeper problem, symptoms no one yet dared to name. In March 2022, the truth was revealed. Willis's family announced that he had been diagnosed with aphasia, a neurological disorder that severely impairs speech, memory, and the ability to process language. This explained the reliance on earpieces, the reduced screen time, and the sudden withdrawal from meaningful roles. It forced Willis into the most painful decision of his life, retiring from acting after more than 4 decades on screen. For the man who once made the world hold its breath with the line, "Yippee-ki-yay" in Die Hard, losing the ability to speak clearly was like losing a part of his very identity. But the tragedy did not stop there. Just a year later, in February 2023, his family shared an even more devastating update. Willis had been diagnosed with frontotemporal dementia, FTD. This rare, incurable brain disease gradually erodes language, cognition, and behavior. For an actor who had built his career on sharp eyes, a commanding voice, and an indomitable spirit, FTD was the harshest sentence fate could deliver. Life and current condition. At 70, Bruce Willis is no longer a familiar face in the media. He has stepped away from the spotlight and now lives in a carefully prepared private space, a quiet, single-level home where wide hallways and well-arranged rooms allow him to move safely as his health declines. When news broke that he was living separately, many fans feared he was being isolated. In reality, it was a medical decision, meant to minimize the risk of falls and provide a stable environment for someone with dementia. That house is not a place of confinement, but rather a rest station where he can be safe while family members come and go each day, turning distance into moments of reunion. Emma Hemming, his second wife and steadfast pillar, keeps a routine of bringing their 2 young daughters, Mabel and Evelyn, for breakfast with their father, then returning in the evening so the family can gather again. Demi Moore and his 3 older daughters are also often present, forming a circle of love where past and present blur into one. The image of Bruce sitting quietly in a chair, surrounded by the laughter of his children, with Emma or Demi holding his hand, reveals a simple truth. Love is the strongest safety net a man once known as a hero can ever have. It isn't only Emma. The presence of Demi Moore and his 3 grown daughters, Rumor, Scout, and Tallulah, has been a powerful source of support. Rarely in Hollywood has a family remained this closely knit. A current wife and an ex-wife, 5 daughters from 2 marriages, all united in caring for one man. Time and again, the public has seen photos of family gatherings, birthday videos where Bruce, though no longer able to speak clearly, still shows recognition in his eyes at the sound of his children's laughter. His life now no longer consists of rushed flights to film sets or noisy press conferences. Instead, it follows a slower rhythm, a specially prepared meal, short walks in the garden with a daughter's support, or moments when he closes his eyes to listen to an old song. Though his speech has been worn down, a sudden spark in his gaze or the firm squeeze of a hand is enough to prove he has never lost the thread that ties him to the world around him. These small rays of light have become a profound comfort to his family, a reminder that beneath the fog of illness, Bruce Willis is still there, still remembering how to love. In this present picture, Bruce is no longer the invincible John McClane, nor the multi-million-dollar box office star. He is a man moving through the final chapter of life with fragility, yet wrapped in the love of his family. And it is this very fragility, set against the golden memories of his past, that creates an image both heartbreaking and beautiful. An action legend now living quietly in the embrace of those he loves, proving that true strength is not in gunfire or stunts, but in the way one is cherished and cared for when all the lights of fame have faded. Bruce Willis, from a stuttering boy in New Jersey to one of Hollywood's greatest action icons, has lived a life where light and shadow were always intertwined. He once made the world hold its breath as John McClane moved audiences to tears in The Sixth Sense, and then quietly stepped away when illness stole his voice, his memory, and his freedom. But to see him only as a star who faded would be unfair. Bruce's greatest legacy is not just the blockbusters he left behind, but the story of a man who fought adversity since childhood, who loved deeply, and who, in his most fragile years, was surrounded by the unwavering embrace of family. Today, when audiences revisit Die Hard or pause at the quiet sorrow in his eyes in The Sixth Sense, we are not only remembering a movie star, we are witnessing the life of a man who lived, who loved, and who fought until the end. Perhaps the real question is not what Bruce Willis has lost, but what he has left in your heart. Was it a laugh, a tear, or the belief that even as the body fades, love and memory still carry the power to live forever? If Bruce Willis has ever touched your heart, share your moment in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, so together we can keep telling the stories of those who turned the silver screen into legend.